I've talked about a few Sony animation franchises, most notably, Open Season. And if you've seen any of those videos, you know my feelings on the franchise. I think it's an absolute dumpster fire of a franchise, and Sony should have never made it a franchise in the first place. But I'm not here to talk about that trash heap. Today we're going to talk about a movie series that Sony attempted to start, or is still attempting to start, considering a TV series is in the works, and that is the franchise based on the 2007 underrated gem that is Surf's Up. However, unlike Open Season, which got 3 sequels and a spin-off and is still an IP Sony brings back for some reason, Surf's Up didn't become that. But why is that? How did such a good movie like Surf's Up not get a franchise that lasted as long as the abysmal Open Season franchise? Well, let's talk about Surf's Up, Sony's failed franchise. The idea for Surf's Up came from Ash Brannon, who wanted to do something a little different compared to other animated films. He wanted to make a documentary-style animated film about surfing. He also based a lot of the characters and things off of real-life people. Big Z is loosely based on a surfer named Greg Knoll due to his philosophy on surfing, and the story is based on the legendary surfer Eddie Aikau, which if you've seen the first trailer and some of the posters, that makes sense. They also put in a lot of references to real-life sports media, such as the network that films the surfing competition Spen, is a very obvious reference to ESPN. In 2007, Surf's Up came out, and it was a flop. It made over $100 million worldwide. It did get solid reception from critics and audiences, and even got a nomination for Best Animated Feature, so it wasn't completely hopeless. Yet despite all that, Sony did not give it a sequel and decided to focus on Open Season as its prime franchise, and it was forgotten shortly after, until years later, the film started to get a following. People on YouTube talking about their fondness of the feature, and even saying it was among Sony Animation's best. This caught the attention of Sony, and in 2017, we finally got a sequel, Surf's Up 2 Wave Mania. However, this was not the sequel people wanted. Just like the Open Season sequels, this got dumped straight to DVD, and unlike the first film, which was mature and well executed, this isn't really a straight sequel. This is another one of those WWE crossover movies in the same veins as their ventures with Hanna-Barbera IPS. WWE reached out to Sony to express a deep interest in making a Surf's Up crossover movie, stating that the original had a very chill vibe. I'm not even joking. That is literally what they said. Unsurprisingly, nobody liked Surf's Up 2. It was hated among fans of Surf's Up and fans of animation, and it was trashed online and offline. With the reception that bad, Sony did not make a Surf's Up 3, and for a while, it seemed like that was it for the franchise, until in 2025, it was announced that a Surf's Up TV series was in the works and was scheduled to air in 2027, another 10 years from the previous installment, and for now, the future of the franchise is uncertain. Will it capture the magic of the original? Or will it make us frustrated and angry like the sequel? We'll just have to wait and see. So why did Surf's Up fail to become a long-running franchise like Open Season? Well, I think there are a few reasons. When the first movie came out, it flopped hard. The idea and concept for the movie just didn't interest people. Just like Treasure Planet, most people dismissed it because it seemed too ridiculous, and because it did so poorly at the box office. Sony tossed it away and ignored it for a while, like how Pixar does to A Bug's Life to this day, as well as DreamWorks to Over the Hedge. The movie was forgotten and disappeared very quickly after its run in theaters. Nobody talked about it for a while and nobody remembered that it existed. It was a film that was swept under the rug for a long time, and while the film eventually got a cult following in a sequel, by then it was too late. Surf's Up had long lost all relevancy and wasn't an IP that people had interest in. Surf's Up popularity is a lot like Megamind. They both did very poorly when they came out, they were forgotten, and then years later they both had a spike of popularity from people who grew up with it and discussed their fondness for the movie and how it's incredibly solid. But then the studio tries to cash in on the film's popularity online, and it does anything but succeed and then is buried and left behind. The sequel not only got torn apart when it came out, but it was often regarded as one of the worst movies under Sony Animation's name. And when you have a movie that is so hated by the public, it instantly tarnishes whatever chance for long-term success there was. Surf's Up at that point was dead, and there was no hope for the franchise. And while there is a TV series in the works that is supposed to be a passing the torch kind of story, I highly doubt it's going to change people's minds about this franchise. it's probably just gonna come and go like all of Sony Animation's other spin-offs, and then just fade into obscurity. That might be too cynical, and maybe the show will be great and get people excited about Surf's Up again, but that is a giant maybe, and I have my doubts. This franchise is on really shaky ground. If it succeeds, it could lead to a comeback for this series, but if it fails, it'll be yet another catastrophic failure for this IP and will probably mark the end for the franchise. Overall, guys, the Surf's Up franchise is a very disappointing case. The first movie was so good, and it deserved to have a franchise just as good, but unfortunately, Sony only thought with their wallet rather than their integrity. They only made another Surf's Up movie because they were offered millions of dollars to put wrestling celebrities in it. They didn't make it because they really had a good idea or had a passionate desire to return to that world and take the characters in interesting directions and development. They just made it to cash out, nothing else. And I speak for everyone when I say, this is not the sequel we wanted. This was just a cheap cash grab that served no benefit to the story and just rehashed the plot and themes of the first movie in a soulless and lazy way. And that always leads to the downfall of a successful company, brand and IP, and unless there is genuine effort and a want to add something meaningful, nobody is going to care. I wanted a sequel to Surf's Up for so long, one that would progress the characters in satisfying ways and give them more depth. But instead what we got was a low-quality retread of the original with WWE wrestlers. WWE did not ruin this franchise, Sony ruined it by not putting in any care towards it, and because of that, the franchise became another failed IP just like a plethora of others. Hopefully they can salvage whatever chance it has as a franchise with a new series and make it good again, but I'm not holding my breath. They still can't make open season good, so the chances of it being good are very low. But like I said, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyways guys, what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.